Winter. Winter has a way of erasing sound, light, and people. These are three true stories of ordinary nights that turned into something no one can explain. A trapper on the Seward Trail heard someone knocking at his cabin door. When he opened it, boot prints led into the snow.
I should have known something was wrong when the snow started falling faster than the forecast said it would. The radio had promised light flurries, maybe an inch or two at most, just enough to make the roads slick. I'd driven this route dozens of times before, cutting through the back roads of northern Michigan to save an hour instead of taking the highway. It was late December, the kind of cold that makes the inside of your nose sting when you breathe. But I wasn't worried. I had a full tank, warm clothes, and daylight on my side. That confidence didn't last long. About 30 minutes in, the sky darkened unnaturally fast. Snow thickened, flakes slamming against my windshield like handfuls of gravel. Trees on either side of the road became tall black shapes closing in, and my phone lost signal completely. Premeta slowed down, gripping the wheel tighter, telling myself it was just a temporary patch of bad weather. Then my headlights caught something ahead that made me ease off the gas entirely. Footprints. Bare footprints in the snow, crossing the road from the woods on one side to the woods on the other. I stopped the car. The prints were fresh, already filling in with snow, but still clearly human. No shoes, no boots, just the shape of toes pressed into frozen ground. I rolled my window down an inch, expecting to hear something, maybe laughter or shouting, but there was nothing. No wind, no animals, just the hush that comes when snow swallows sound. I waited for a few seconds, then drove on, forcing myself not to think about it. 10 minutes later, my car began to struggle. The engine coughed once, then again, before the dashboard lit up like a Christmas tree. I barely made it to the side of the road before it died completely. I tried restarting it over and over, breath fogging the air inside, until the battery gave up. I was officially stranded. I stepped out into the snow, boots sinking deeper than I expected. It was quiet in a way that didn't feel natural. I popped the hood, even though I didn't know what I was looking for. Just trying to feel like I was doing something useful. That's when I noticed them again. Footprints, leading from the woods toward my car. Still barefoot, still human. They stopped a few feet behind me. I turned slowly, heart hammering, flashlight shaking in my hand. The beam cut through falling snow, revealing nothing but trees and drifting white. No person. No movement. I told myself the storm was messing with my head, that I was panicking because I was alone. I got back into the car, locked the doors, and wrapped myself in my coat. Minutes passed. Then I heard a knock, not loud, just a soft tap against the rear passenger window. I froze. Another tap followed, slower this time, deliberate. I didn't look right away. I couldn't. When I finally turned my head, there was nothing there. No face, no shadow. Just snow sliding down glass. The knocking moved. Rear door. Front door. Driver's side window. Each tap spaced out, patient, like whoever was outside knew I couldn't go anywhere. I shouted, asking who was there, my voice cracking. The tapping stopped. Then I heard breathing. It wasn't muffled by the storm. It was right there, inches away, slow and steady. Fog bloomed across the driver's side window from the outside, as if someone were leaning in close, watching me. I shut my eyes and counted, convinced that if I opened them, something would be staring back. When the sound finally faded, dawn was already breaking. The storm eased like nothing had happened. I got out of the car, numb and exhausted, and saw the footprints again. Dozens of them now. Bare feet circling my car over and over, overlapping, worn deep into the snow. There were no tracks leading away. A plow found me hours later. They asked if I'd been drinking, if I'd hallucinated. No one mentioned the footprints. By the time anyone came back to check, the snow had erased everything. But I still don't take back roads in winter. And when snow falls too quietly, I don't sleep. I was working nights at a small security company when it happened, doing patrols around remote properties that sat empty during the winter. Cabins, lodges, summer homes. Most nights were boring. Drive in, check doors, log it, leave. That night, I was sent to a lakeside cabin that hadn't been used in years. The owner complained about lights turning on by themselves. The drive there was long and lonely. The lake completely frozen over, reflecting moonlight like cracked glass. The cabin looked untouched, buried halfway in snowdrifts, porch sagging under ice. I parked, stepped out, and immediately felt like I was intruding on something that didn't want company. The front door was locked, windows intact, no lights inside. I circled around back, boots crunching loudly, the sound echoing across the frozen lake. That's when I noticed a single trail of footprints leading from the tree line to the cabin, bare feet. They stopped at the back door. I radioed it in, but static swallowed my words. No signal. I debated leaving, but the job drilled responsibility into you. I knocked. No answer. I tried to handle. Locked. As I turned to leave, I heard something inside. Scraping. Slow. Uneven. Like something heavy being dragged across the floor. I called out again. Louder this time, announcing myself. The sound stopped. The cabin fell silent. I waited, pulse pounding, watching my breath fog the air. After a few seconds, the scraping resumed, closer now, directly behind the door. Primera basket Hawaii flashlight trained on the entrance. The knob turned slightly, just enough to make the lock click. I ran. I didn't stop until I reached my truck. As I slammed the door shut, headlights flickered on inside the cabin. One window, then another. Dim yellow light filled the rooms like something waking up. I drove off, without logging anything. The company fired me a week later for abandoning post. The cabin burned down that winter. They said faulty wiring. No one mentioned footprints. I live in a city now, but sometimes, when winter freezes the river near my apartment, I swear I hear scraping beneath the ice. The last story is harder to tell, because part of me still I survived it. I was part of a search and rescue volunteer group, mostly helping lost hikers or stranded motorists during snowstorms. One January night, we got a call about a man who'd gone missing near an old ranger station deep in the mountains. He hadn't been seen in 2 days. Temperatures were well below zero. We split into teams. My partner and I headed toward the station, snow falling hard enough to blur our headlamps. Halfway there, we found the man's car abandoned on the side of the road. Door open, keys still inside. Footprints led away into the trees, bare feet. My partner hesitated. I pushed forward. That's my biggest regret. The trail went deeper than it should have. Too far for someone barefoot in that cold. Eventually, we saw the ranger station ahead. Lights on inside. Relief washed over me. Someone was there. As we approached, the lights flicked off. The door creaked open. Something stood in the doorway. Tall, unmoving, watching us. My partner whispered my name, telling me to stop. I didn't. I stepped closer, calling out. The figure tilted its head, slowly, unnaturally. Then it stepped backward into the darkness. Inside the station, we found no one, just frozen breath hanging in the air, like someone had been standing there moments before. We searched until morning. Never found the missing man. Weeks later, another volunteer vanished in the same area. The station was closed permanently after that. But every winter, when storms roll in and visibility drops, emergency radios crackle with calls from that location. Voices asking for help. Come. Voices. Cold. Voices. And when rescue teams arrive, they always find the same thing. Footprints. Bare feet, leading into the snow. The second time winter showed me how thin the line is between safety and isolation. I was working nights for a private security company. It wasn't glamorous. Most shifts involved driving slow loops around properties no one lived in during the colder months. Vacation cabins. Summer homes, places that sat empty and forgotten once the tourists left. The job paid just enough to keep me from quitting, and the night shifts paid more, which mattered more than comfort at the time. That night I was assigned to a property near a frozen lake, deep inside a stretch of forest that barely saw plows in winter. The owner had called in a complaint about lights turning on inside the cabin. Motion sensors triggering without reason. Nothing dramatic, but enough to justify a patrol. I remember hesitating when I saw the address, because even in daylight, the place felt cut off from the world. The drive there took nearly an hour. Snow wasn't falling yet, but the air felt heavy, like it was holding something back. The lake came into view first, a wide flat sheet of ice reflecting the moon in broken patches. The cabin sat just beyond the shoreline, half buried in snow, roof sagging under ice buildup. It looked abandoned in the way something looks when no one has cared about it for a long time. Not the way something looks when it's simply empty. I parked near the tree line and stepped out. The cold hit hard and immediate, sinking into my bones. My boots crunched loudly against the snow, the sound echoing across the frozen lake. That echo bothered me more than it should have. Sound carried too well out there, like the place was listening. I approached the front door first. Locked, windows intact, no light inside. Everything looked normal. I logged it on my tablet and moved around the side of the cabin, flashlight sweeping slow arcs across the snow. That's when I noticed the footprints. They came from the trees, straight, unbroken. Bare feet. The impressions were deep and clean, toes clearly defined. They didn't wander or hesitate. They went directly to the back door and stopped. I stood there longer than I should have, staring at them, trying to think of a reason someone would be out there without shoes in that cold. I radioed it in, but my voice came back, warped and broken through static. No signal. I told myself it was probably a squatter, someone desperate enough not to care about frostbite. That explanation felt thin, but it was better than nothing. I knocked on the back door, announcing myself. No response. I tried. The handle locked. I turned to leave, already deciding I'd report it and let someone else deal with it in daylight. That's when I heard the sound from inside. A slow scraping, like something heavy being dragged across a wooden floor. It stopped when I froze. I held my breath, listening. The sound resumed, closer this time, directly on the other side of the door. I raised my flashlight, heart hammering. "Security," I called out. "If anyone's inside, you need to respond." My voice sounded too loud, too fragile in the cold air. The scraping stopped. The doorknob turned, just enough to make the lock click, testing it. Not frantic, not aggressive. Curious. I stepped back without thinking, boots slipping slightly on packed snow. The knob twisted again, harder this time. The door didn't open, but the pressure against it was unmistakable. Someone was leaning into it from the other side. I ran. I didn't look back until I reached my truck. As I slammed the door and locked it, headlights flickered on inside the cabin. One room at first, then another. Warm yellow light spilling through windows that had been dark seconds earlier. The glow reflected off the ice of the lake, stretching the light out in long, distorted shapes. I drove away without logging anything else. I didn't slow down until I hit pavement. The company fired me a week later for abandoning a post without clearance. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. There was nothing I could say. That wouldn't sound insane. A month after that, the cabin burned down. Faulty wiring, they said. Electrical issue caused by ice damage. No one mentioned lights turning on. No one mentioned footprints. Sometimes, late at night in winter, when everything outside my apartment goes quiet, I hear a scraping sound beneath the frozen river nearby. Slow, rhythmic, like something dragging itself along under the ice, looking for a door that won't open. The last time winter nearly killed me was the only time I thought I was doing something good. I volunteered with a local search and rescue group, mostly helping stranded drivers or lost hikers when storms hit hard. It wasn't heroic work. Most calls ended with someone embarrassed but alive. One January night, though, we got a call that felt different. A man had gone missing near an old ranger station deep in the mountains. His car was found abandoned on a service road. Door open, keys still inside. He'd been gone for 2 days. Temperatures hadn't risen above 0. We split into teams. My partner and I took the route toward the ranger station. Snow was falling thick and fast, swallowing our tracks almost as soon as we made them. The deeper we went, the quieter the forest became. Even the wind seemed muted, like it was being absorbed by the trees. We found the man's car exactly where they said it would be. Engine cold. No sign of a struggle. Footprints led away from it and into the woods. Bare feet. My partner stopped when he saw them. He said we should turn back and report it. Wait for daylight. I pushed forward. I told him people in shock do strange things. I told him we didn't have time. The trail went on far longer than it should have. Too far. Anyone barefoot in that cold would have collapsed long before we reached the point where the trees began to thin. Ahead of us, lights appeared through the snow. The ranger station. Someone was there. Relief washed over me so fast my knees felt weak. We approached, calling out, boots crunching loud in the silence. As we got closer, the lights flicked off, all at once. The front door creaked open. Something stood in the doorway. Tall. Still. Watching us. My partner whispered my name, told me to stop. I didn't. I called out again, asking if anyone needed help. The figure tilted its head slowly, at an angle no neck should bend. Then it stepped backward into the darkness inside the station. We followed. Inside, the air was freezing. Our breath hung in the room like smoke, lingering longer than it should have. There was no one there. No sign of life. Just faint impressions in the frost on the floor, like someone had been standing still for a long time and then vanished. We searched until morning. We never found the missing man. Weeks later, another volunteer disappeared in the same area. Then another. The ranger station was closed permanently. Officially, it was due to structural damage and unsafe conditions. Every winter since, emergency radios crackle with calls from that location. Come voices asking for help, saying they're cold, saying they can see the lights. And when rescue teams arrive, they always find the same thing. Bare footprints in the snow, leading away from safety, into the trees. Years have passed since that last search, but winter still has a way of dragging those memories back to the surface. I don't volunteer anymore. I don't drive long distances once the temperature drops. I don't answer calls from unknown numbers during snowstorms. I tell people it's because I've gotten older, because priorities change, because the cold hurts my joints more than it used to. That's only part of the truth. The real reason is that winter taught me something I can't unlearn. It taught me that isolation doesn't just make things quiet. It makes things visible. When snow falls thick enough, it erases the usual distractions. Roads disappear. Landmarks blur. Sound dies, and whatever is left behind becomes impossible to ignore. I started noticing patterns after that last incident. At first it was just coincidence. News stories I'd normally scroll past without thinking. A stranded driver found unharmed, but unable to explain how he survived the night. A hiker who wandered out of a storm barefoot, frostbitten, but alive, claiming he followed lights through the trees. A search operation called off because of weather, then never resumed. Always winter, always snow, always the same unanswered questions. What bothered me most was how often people described the cold as feeling intentional. Not just harsh or unforgiving, but aware, like it knew exactly how much you could take and waited until you crossed that line. Survivors talked about silence more than pain, about how everything felt paused, suspended, as if the world were holding its breath. I tried to tell myself that fear fills in gaps when the mind is pushed too far. Hypothermia causes hallucinations. Stress distorts memory. Those explanations helped during the day. At night, they fell apart. One evening in late January, long after I'd left the rescue group, a storm rolled in without warning. Thick, heavy snow that swallowed the city in a matter of hours. Power went out around midnight. The streetlights flickered once and died, plunging everything into darkness. I stood by my window, watching flakes swirl under the faint glow of distant buildings, feeling that familiar pressure settle in my chest. That was when I saw the footprints. They appeared in the fresh snow on the sidewalk below my apartment, one by one, as if something invisible were walking through the storm. Bare feet. Perfect impressions. They moved slowly, deliberately, stopping beneath my window. I told myself it was exhaustion. Memory playing tricks on me. I closed the blinds and stepped away, heart racing. I didn't look again until morning. By then, the snowplows had cleared the street. The sidewalk was bare. No footprints, no sign anyone had been there. But I didn't feel relieved. I felt watched. I started asking around discreetly, talking to people who'd worked winters longer than I had. Plow drivers, utility workers, park rangers, the ones who spend nights out when everyone else stays inside. Most of them laughed it off. A few didn't. A few lowered their voices and told me things they didn't put in reports. They talked about figures seen standing on frozen lakes, unmoving, even in high winds. About doors found unlocked in remote buildings, despite being secured the night before. About radio calls that came through clearly during storms. Only 2 lead teams nowhere. About footprints that didn't match any boots they'd ever seen. Always bare. One ranger told me something that stuck with me. He said winter doesn't kill people the way we think it does. It doesn't rush. It doesn't chase. It waits. It isolates you just enough that you start questioning your own senses. Once you're unsure, once you hesitate, it's already won. I don't know if what people encounter out there is something supernatural or something broken in the human mind. Maybe it's both. Maybe it doesn't matter. What matters is that winter strips away the illusion of safety. It reminds us how thin the barrier is between the world we understand and the one that doesn't care if we understand it or not. Every year, when the first heavy snow falls, I see the same advice passed around. Stay indoors. Keep warm. Avoid unnecessary travel. People share it like it's common sense. And for most, it is. But there are always a few who ignore it. People chasing shortcuts. People helping strangers. People convinced they can handle just one more trip, one more night, one more meal. Those are the ones winter remembers. So if you ever find yourself out there, alone, surrounded by snow so thick it feels like the world has gone quiet on purpose, pay attention to what you see on the ground. Pay attention to what you hear when the wind dies down. And if you ever notice footprints in fresh snow that don't make sense, that don't belong to anyone who should be there, turn back. Because winter doesn't need to explain itself. It just waits for you to make the wrong decision.